Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Press Break podcast. And I'm saying that for the last time, and it's really sad. We're approaching a new era here on Her Hoop Stats. So thank you so much for listening, and we hope that you will continue to listen as we change our podcast format. So starting today and into next week, we are shifting from just having our Press Break podcast to doing more of the Her Hoop Stats podcast network. So we're going to be coming at you 5 days a week with podcasts and shifting hosts a little bit. So the three of us will still be on the podcast network, but not necessarily every Wednesday for you and more often. So you're going to be able to listen to us with some different co-hosts. We have some new people joining the team, some guests, and we're going to have more up-to-date daily coverage for you this summer going into the WNBA season. So stay tuned on Her Hoop Stats for that. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us wherever you're listening to our podcasts. And make sure to check us out every weekday as we head into the WNBA season. And we're super excited about it. So don't worry, we're not saying goodbye. We're just kind of shifting the way that we do things. But for today, we're going to keep it to the three of us and just prepare for the WNBA season, talk a little bit about previews as training camp ends and heads into the regular season. So thank you so much for listening, and let's get into our final.
I will say, for those of you who are in the comments saying, why aren't you talking about this team? Why aren't you talking about that person? Why aren't you talking about blah, 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 XYZ? This is for you. This is so that we can have more consistent coverage, broader coverage. So we love the requests when you're nice about it. Like, keep giving us the feedback.
No,
we're
this is you
working
finding out we specifically don't like your favorite team.
That's if we're still glossing over it, like if we're still ignoring it, then
specifically your favorite team.
Then you might have
a
some
personal individual vendetta against you.
And the best part about this new format that is going to come is the fact that our new co-hosts and the three of us, everybody comes from such different backgrounds in basketball. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have so many different perspectives. Like, we have people who have been coaches before. We have people who come from different backgrounds in terms of media. We have people who, like me, are here for the vibes. But yeah, it's just going to be so great to have all of those different perspectives and people who are interested in different parts of the game, so that we can provide more comprehensive and more complete coverage. And, you're still going to hear us yap, and I'm sure every once in a while the three of us will get on for a little reunion tour kind of vibe. So, yeah, we're excited about it. But just as things are shifting into the regular season, we're also shifting our format. So can't wait to see you all in this new kind of format. Unfortunately, you're going to have to hear my voice more times a week.
Yeah, unlike the W, we're not making cuts. We are adding.
We're adding. Yes, we're adding onto things. And there's going to be a lot more integration between what you find in the Her Hoop Stats newsletter. So if you're not subscribed to that, make sure to go subscribe to our Her Hoop Stats newsletter so that you can be able to know what we're referencing and know all of that when it comes into your inbox. It literally comes right into your inbox every day. So let's head into talking about the WNBA preseason coming to an end, and just talk about a few teams or a few, I guess, roster decisions. We're at the point now where some teams are kind of closer to being done with their roster decisions, and teams that unfortunately are going to have to make so many cuts in the next 24 hours, especially by the time you guys are listening to this. It's Wednesday, and rosters are due on Thursday. So yeah, let's talk. Jamie, let's start with you, because I know you have a few thoughts about the recent cuts. And I mean, let's just put a blanket statement out there that we're recording on Tuesday. So whenever this goes up, whether it's Tuesday, whether it's Wednesday, this is when we'll have our information. There's going to be lots of cuts. Exactly. So
we're just as of right now, the finalized rosters are Chicago Sky, Dallas, which is kind of pending Luisa Geiselsoder's decisions, which hasn't necessarily been made, but she hasn't reported. So pending anything with that, they are currently finalized. The Aces are finalized because of the pregnancy exemption from Cheyenne Parker-Tyus, and then the Storm are also finalized as of right now, financially. So they could still make moves. They could still sign people. They could still cut people. But as of right now, that's kind of where we're at.
And just to maybe dive in very briefly to the pregnancy exemption for people.
Yeah. So the pregnancy exemption is a sort of different exemption from a lot of medical exemptions, because usually it's okay if you're below 10 people or if you have 2 people out. There's honestly, Her Hoop Stats has the best plain English descriptions of all of this. And that is simply a fact. If you go onto our website and you go into the tab for the WNBA salary cap, there's a whole lot of great information about the current CBA that will soon have to be completely rewritten. Don't want to be the person doing that.
Not my job.
Yep. Gonna go out on a limb that's probably heavily on Richard. So I'm sure he's gonna have a blast with that. But yeah, so that's you can carry a 13th player for a player who is out because of pregnancy. And so they don't have to make an additional cut and then sign a hardship contract. They're just able to come into the season with technically 13 people on contract, one of those being Cheyenne Parker-Tyus, who's going to be out. So that's the big thing there.
If she were to, I don't know exactly when she's due or anything, but if she were to have the baby recover, come back at some point of the season, would that 13th player then get cut?
Yep. Yeah. So just like a normal injury exemption, then you would have to cut someone, but it's just that you don't need to go through the formal application process and hit all the same standards as medical hardship exemptions, because those are a little bit stricter. If she were out because she were injured, they wouldn't be able to carry an additional player right now. Yeah. But since it's for pregnancy, they are.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Glad, because that's obviously when people come in from other leagues, that's different. So I just wanted to make sure that we talked about that. But anyway, continuing on to cuts that have been made, or, just kind of moves that you're thinking about as of right now.
So the big one that I'm looking at is there are a number of teams right now that have 5, 6, 8, as many as 10 training camp and draftee contracts that they're going to have to cut down nearly in half or more. There is one roster that is very nearly finalized, and that's the Indiana Fever. And what they have going on is very unique, because they have enough cap space where they could keep 2 people on a minimum contract. The 2 people that are on their draftee and training camp contracts right now are Michaela Timpson and Jaylen Brown. So Timpson, because of where she was drafted, is not on a minimum contract. Her contract would be a little over $69,000. Jaylen Brown, on the other hand, is about $66,000. So they have just over $112,000 in cap space. That means they have exactly the amount of space to keep 2 people on their minimum contracts, but they cannot keep both Michaela Timpson and Jaylen Brown. So my curiosity is, okay, in a perfect world, you could technically cut Michaela Timpson, and if she clears waivers, re-sign her at the lower amount, and then you get to keep all of those players. The reality we live in is,
it's a big
I don't know that Michaela Timpson probably clears the waivers. And so you get into this point where it's, okay, is it more worth it to have the potential to keep all of this intact, or is there someone else who you might be okay with losing in order to ensure that you get to keep Michaela Timpson, and then you can go out and you can sign another player for depth at some point if you want to. But that's just because of how small the difference is. It's insane. Just such a strange consideration to be made because of that hard cap. And so I'm really curious to see what they end up doing.
Yeah, the thing with the hard cap, and it's a big thing coming up in the CBA. The hard cap makes it so hard, literally, to be able to do things like that. Because say in the NBA or other leagues where you have a softer cap, you're able to go over, and you have the potential to pay tax or whatever. There's definitely things that happen when you go over the cap, but you're still able to keep those roster, not have to do all of this jumping through loops in order, and then risk losing your player on waivers, and risk, because then there's teams like Phoenix who didn't
over
get
$3,000.
That they definitely have and could pay her. I'm sure Indiana Fever isn't hurting for $3,000. and because of this, so yeah, that's a thing when we're talking about CBA negotiations and all of the nitty gritty. Like this is one of them, one of these points that is going to be very highly contested in these negotiations is the fact of like having, the salary cap's definitely going to go up, don't mind you, but like having those like softer exceptions, having like an apron or, stuff like that that you can dip into so that you don't have to do all these random things, risk losing your players that you've just spent, time in, that you drafted and spent time in training camp. So yeah, it's odd, but who am I to who am I to say what should and shouldn't be on the CBA?
And obviously they could cut anyone that doesn't have a guaranteed contract. Like it's not to say that it for sure would be Timpson or Brown, but just the fact that because those are the two that are not like actual contracts yet, they haven't been converted since the season hasn't started, that's where you start looking. And then when you get into the math on it and how tight it is, it's just like, oh my gosh, it's crazy.
Yeah. Man, Tyler, do you have anything like that where you're just like, these cuts are killing me? And,
I'll tell you the cut. There's two cuts that have really hurt me just on a personal level. One, Serena Sundell from Seattle. Yeah. Like I was pushing that agenda. She didn't have like the most dominant or like greatest preseason performance by any means. I'm just still like that. To me, Sundell is a WNBA player. Like it's just like to me, it's just like that simple, honestly. Yeah. And like
someone was in my comment, my Blue Sky mentions being like, you have to ask Tyler how he feels about Sundell being
horrible. I feel awful. Okay.
There you go. There's your answer.
So like I mean like, but to me like she's a WNBA player. Like just like she belongs on a roster in my eyes. But I'll tell you the one that really sucks was Deja Kelly. Because you go and do everything and more that you need to do in preseason. Yeah, because of guaranteed contracts and all these different things, and again, what we're getting into, like when it comes to the difficult parts of roster building in the WNBA, a guaranteed contract like Kirsten Bell can keep you off a roster. Why wouldn't I? It's hers. Like it's so like to me, and like it's just the reality of the situation. Like that is who. Like, I mean, because all the other guaranteed contracts ain't going anywhere. I promise you that on the Las Vegas Aces. That's no problem. But to go and do not just what you were supposed to do, because she did way more than that. She overperformed and was incredible. Incredible. In those preseason games. Hits the game winner. Revived the mid-range. Well, Phoenix is trying to take it away from us. Deja Kelly said, hold on. Against Phoenix, right? I think it was the game winner was against Phoenix. Yeah. I said, hold on. What mid-range?
Sure.
Where's the mid-range going? So to me, when there's so much pressure put on rookies that are coming in to perform immediately in preseason, because if you go and have, again, like to me, Serena Sundell is a player that should be on a WNBA roster. On a Storm team that doesn't have a ton of guard depth as well, like there was like a pathway to make the roster there. And obviously there was injuries and everything. Like their roster is also like another one that's just like convoluted. I mean, everyone's is, frankly. But when
you're having to carry the contract on salary of a player that's going to be out for the season.
Right. Those are the like these are the type of cuts that have to be made. But like even then, she didn't have like the greatest preseason performance, and like that hurts. Like that actively, like you have to come in and immediately. And we talk about the transition into the W and all of those things, but there's not much grace given to many rookies in the WNBA. So to take that perspective and apply it to Deja Kelly, where you go and do literally everything right, like you could not have potentially asked for anything more from Deja Kelly in those preseason games, and you still get cut. Just because of the nature of the W, of the CBA, of the cap, of contracts, like all the different factors that go into it, you did exactly, and more what was asked of you, and you still get cut. And so for me, like I just hope that those two players, like on a personal basis, like just like of who I enjoy watching, like again to me, Sundell is an absolute WNBA player. Deja Kelly was hooping in preseason, and like there's teams that need guards. I can think of several that just generally speaking need guard depth. Phoenix, Washington, like there's team. Hell, even Deja going to Seattle potentially. Like I don't know. Again, I'm not thinking money off the top of my head, but like just from my fit perspective and like needing depth, like there's opportunities out there. Again, like for different reasons, both of those hurt me in different ways.
Yeah.
But those were like the two cuts to me that like were
Hurt.
just brutal, like in this kind of recent batch.
And I think the, like, struggle with Vegas, and I know a lot of fans are being, like, unnecessarily harsh about it, but, like, the reality of the situation is that when you're thinking about who's gonna make an impact on a team that really needs depth because they are very top heavy in terms of who's making an impact and who is, playing a lot of minutes. When you think about who's gonna come in and play those secondary minutes, I think Deja Kelly had much of a better chance of making an impact, but then you have to cut her because of these contract things that you really have no control of unless you go and do something like a contract divorce or whatever.
Which there would be no reason for the player to do that
Exactly. So, like,
in this scenario.
in
There's
this
literally no reason.
you think about Katie Lou Samuelson, who they did that with the Fever, and it was because, okay, you have other options of where to
Mhm.
go. Seattle picked her up. She still has a high ceiling as a player, whatever. If you're a player and you don't know if you are going to make another team, there's no reason to agree to a contract divorce. And so then Deja Kelly gets cut. But I think, like, so for my thing here, like, instead of picking a team or a cut, like, I just think here's my pitch. I'm just gonna pitch.
Mm.
I think that in the next CBA, and I'm sure they're trying to think of something like this, but like there needs to be some sort of development system, even if you're not gonna get full roster spots for these young players. There needs to be some sort of way to keep these players in the system. And Jamie's looking at me like I don't know what she's
Oh,
doing, but
no, this is I've ranted for probably 10 minutes at a time about this for 2 years
I feel like I've heard the
minimum.
rant before, actually.
You
Yeah.
definitely have. This
And,
has
like,
been my crusade for years. Development spots specifically for players that would be in like their rookie scale, so 3
Mhm.
years of service or less, or even go with the same as the prioritization exemptions, 2 years of service or less. They
Yep.
then are able to slot right in as players when you have a medical exemption.
So
I've been begging.
So yeah, exactly. Here's my pitch. And not to make it about the men, but I just have this perspective as someone who covers a men's basketball team who was robbed last night, mind you, but we're not going to get into that. But anyway, yeah, the math ain't mathin'. Anyways, no hate to the city of Dallas, but some hate to the city of Dallas. Anyways, so yeah, here's my thing. If you were to kind of try, I know that the WNBA doesn't have a development league like the G League. I know that's probably not going to happen just because that's the way the world works. But if you were to get, so in the NBA, they have two-way players. So these are players that play for both the G League and the NBA team, and they go back and forth. They have a specific limit of games, and I think in the NBA it's 50 games that they are allowed to play, it's 50 days they're allowed to be active on NBA rosters. And once you use those time, like sometimes you get converted to a contract or whatever. There's lots of different ways, but the main thing is that they have a limit of games they're allowed to play or days they're allowed to be active in the NBA. And because of that, they still get to be around the team. They practice with them. They play a lot in the G League. And they get paid less. Like it's not like they're getting paid these like huge things, but they are able to learn the system, be in practice with these guys, learn the coaches, learn the plays, be a part of the team. And then, especially when you have teams at the end of the season that struggle with injury, or you have, you're tanking and people are resting or whatever, then you get to call up these guys who have been practicing with you the whole time and again just integrate into the system. So whether that's making kind of like a practice two-way player where they're still with the team, they're still practicing, maybe they don't travel all the time, maybe they come in when it's injuries or whatever, right? We just need a way to keep these players on these rosters, because the way that we're cutting people and they're bouncing from like 6 different teams in the first 2 years and then just kind of falling off, or like it's just getting to the point where I'm like, how are we, even with these expansion teams, like how are we developing this young talent? And there's just going to be more and more as the NCAA and stuff like continues to grow. There's just more talented players, and the draft is like, we had people in the 3rd round of the draft this year who are like very good prospects who could make teams if they had the opportunity and be able to develop and turn into good WNBA players. But there's just not this space. Like, we're thinking about these rosters have 11 players. Like, 11. When you think about the NBA has like 15. Like, those, it doesn't seem like a big difference, but it's such a big difference.
And
when you
you're
think
expanding the amount of games, and so
exactly
that's leading into
expanding.
more injuries. Like, you're not really making the season any longer, so shorter turnarounds, awesome. Like, if you're gonna have to sit a vet for rest, if you could activate one of your rookies, like, how great would that be?
Exactly, and not have to just send them out there with no preparation because they haven't been in practice for months, right? Like, it's just getting to the point where it's becoming, like, it's becoming, maybe dangerous sounds like a bigger word, but, like, you're at the point where you have 11 players on a roster. In a lot of these teams have, like, 9, 8, 9 player rotations. You're not really giving yourself enough wiggle room, and it's just anyway, so bring some sort of two-way system to the W is my point.
I can
Um
I can get behind that. I'm really tired of like seeing like these training camp cuts feel like the Hunger Games cannons going off, and like it hurts. And like
Yeah.
truly, I think like the summary of all of our points is that one way or another, rookies are set up to fail
Yeah.
in the WNBA, whether it be contract numbers like Jamie's, whether it be roster
And
spots,
that's
like
even in
it's
a
everything
year
across the
where
board.
it felt like they should have a benefit, because you have the ability to ensure that you retain them in a year where next year you want to talk
Yeah.
about the Hunger Games. Everyone's
Oh,
a
yeah.
free agent, but even so, we're seeing these cuts from people that have tremendous potential, have already shown that they are prepared, and yet they're still getting cut because for a lot of teams, there's simply no other choice. Like, it
Mhm.
just is ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's not even like these teams want to cut these players. They have no choice. Like,
No.
I think about Deja Kelly, who would have contributed, like, as a rookie. You think
I
about
mean, the
Kate
reporting is that
Ryan,
they were trying to figure out a way to keep her up until the very last second. They still are.
like, it's just so frustrating. It's so frustrating. Anyways, this is, I feel like every WNBA fan has the same sentiment, so we could just yell about this for a long time. But
Mhm.
let's get into the season. Literally, like, there's no more preseason games. The season literally starts on Friday, which is wild. And I think let's just get into almost like a preview. Like, we're not going to go team by team or anything because that would take a long time. But let's just get into teams that maybe we are excited to, like, watch going into the season, that we have
Mhm.
a level of curiosity about,
Mhm.
that maybe a couple of weeks ago we were questioning and now we've kind of come around. I know that's Tyler's perspective when it comes to this point. So let's throw it to you, Tyler. I definitely agree with
Yeah.
your choice here. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, so to me, I'm looking at the Chicago Sky.
Mhm.
Look, so to your point of coming around to it, look, I still am not 100% sold on deciding to go win now. Like the idea, like I'm still not 100% sold on that. However, if you're gonna go and win now, they went and made like the perfect moves to go and win now. Bringing in Ariel Atkins, bringing in Rebecca Allen, bringing in Sloot. You needed a point guard. You needed some perimeter defense. You needed some shooting. Found it.
Mhm.
Found it. Like it's like, and to me, where I've kind of landed at with them is that if there is going to be like a quote unquote Cinderella team, it's them.
Yeah.
Like I think like if you see them, I don't want to see Chicago in the first round because I could honestly see them, and we've seen already in preseason games like Tyler Marsh's system is like in play, like it's here. You could visually see the differences. The way that Angel is working in that system is so exciting. I could see it. I say that to say if there's a little bit of a ramp up period at the beginning of the season where maybe they take a couple losses, like a couple extra ones, and maybe that like on paper that they shouldn't or things of that nature potentially, I could see that, and maybe a way they're ranking down a little bit towards the end of the season. But if you told me that the Chicago Sky end up like the 5 seed, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
I really wouldn't. Like, and I think that might take a little bit of fall off from maybe like some of the teams that we expect like in that 1 through 5. But
Mhm.
truthfully, I think if Chicago ends up as like a 6 or a 7 seed, I'd be terrified to be that 2 or 3. I really would. Because to me, the pieces that they got went and solidified their floor as a playoff team. The ceiling of how far the Chicago team can go depends on the development of Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso in year 2. Because you got 2 dominant bigs, which has been a recipe for success across the WNBA just in the history of time. If you go and look at finals MVPs over the years, if you look at MVPs over the years, it's big, and you have your occasional guard just like kind of mixed in there. But generally speaking, it's been bigs, and you went and surrounded them exactly how you needed to. So to me, again, if I was Chicago, I would have loved to kind of split the difference, and maybe you go get a Rebecca Allen, but you still stay at 3 and draft Sonia. Like that would be like in my head, like what I would have personally done. But again, you're here now. You made the win now moves, and I don't think that they could have fit much better. Now it's just a matter of what will hindsight tell us about this being worth it in that sense. But to me, you made the decision, you ran with it, and I don't think they could have done much of a better job. So now that like we're here, the season's about to begin, and we're seeing Tyler Marsh's new system kind of come into action, and we're able to visualize it on court. I'm very excited about their possibility. Again, I don't think that they're going to be like a top 4 seed, but if there was to be a Cinderella team, when I'm looking at like the 5 through like 9 area, like, 'cause I feel like that's all like relatively the same tier of teams for me in my eyes. Chicago to me is like the clear cut Cinderella potential team going into this season.
Yeah, and I agree. I loved watching. I was catching their first game at LSU, and like the system just seems so clear. You have Sloot, running point, trying to feed Angel. Camilla is obviously like, you have that.
Passes.
Yes, post entry passes, exactly. But then you surround them by shooters. You have, Beck Allen, you have Rachel Banham, you have Kia Nurse, like all of these people who are these like winners, yeah, and like 3 and D players who can kind of surround that like, pick and roll system, who can also do things like pass and facilitate and whatever, but also are good at shooting, and you're seeing it already come into fruition. I mean, that game that I watched, I know Kia Nurse hit her first, I think it was like 2 or 3 shots, and it's just like, it's just nice, like simple traditional basketball that we like it just. And I think the idea of having Tyler Marsh there, I mean, like we all know that he is like, he was kind of next up on this, like who's going to come from the assistants and get a head coaching position. And like I feel like this is a perfect situation for him where he knows how to deal with these like very talented veterans like he did in Las Vegas, but also, bring up the next generation of stars, because we think about Las Vegas and they've been the team who has been developing their draft picks for years and years. So I think that's like a great place for Angel and Camilla to be in as well, where you're learning from these very very
I wonder how many rings they added to their roster. Like, I don't know off the top of my head, but like you think about like the players that left versus that came in, you got rings on this roster. And then if you include Tyler Marsh in that as well, which is like kind of like obviously head coach new position, but still in that championship era, like era with Vegas, like I don't know off the top of my head how many rings there are, but like you added. Like, again, it's one thing to have tenure in the W, it's another thing to have winning tenure in the W, and like to be successful over and over and over. And like a lot of these players have contributed to winning basketball. Like that's the biggest thing to me. Like if you're going win now, you have to go and find players. If you're trying to transition like overnight, not overnight, but like over the season, right? You need to go find players that have won before. You don't just go and get talent. That doesn't always work. If you want to win now, you have to have teams that have won before. And I think that's what they went and did in a really good way. On top of the fit, just on court, like skill set wise, you also went and got players that have been there before. And I mean, look, Camilla and Angel have also won plenty in their careers as well. So I don't imagine like the idea of winning being too big for Angel and Camilla by any means of the sorts. But you haven't done on the W level just from a career length perspective of it. So I'm not saying top 4 or anything like that, but I would not want to see them in the playoffs one bit.
And I did just watch them live against Minnesota, and I will say, like, definitely you see the difference with Sloot being out that game for rest. The interior presence was not quite as significant because of some of the struggles in getting the ball in there, because of, I think, how heavily they have emphasized that being a lot coming from Courtney Vandersloot and how much she elevates that. However, you also had Rachel Banham with 11 points in the first 4 minutes of the game after not quite lighting the rims on fire in the first game, came out ready to go in this one. And man, they really they still figured it out. Like they really made it competitive up in Minnesota without Sloot. And so then when you're saying, no, like she's pretty healthy, we're just resting, like, and then, you know, you got a new baby at home. So she's maybe like literally resting, like maybe getting a little extra sleep too. But I definitely am intrigued by what Chicago has.
And I mean, we haven't even mentioned the fact that Haley Van Lith made the roster, Maddie Westfeld is making the roster, and like I think the potential for Haley Van Lith to learn from someone like Courtney Vandersloot.
She's gonna have to learn on the job, to be honest.
Learn on
to Jamie's point, like because realistically, like I think like one of the biggest questions for Chicago is over the course of the entire season, how much can you get from Sloot? Like just over the entirety just of the full length season into the playoffs, like what does that look like? And the best way to manage that on their roster right now is through Haley Van Lith. And so there might be times where like maybe it's a game where Courtney is just resting, you know, like and you just see that, and you see Haley Van Lith in a potentially like a I don't know if it'd be starting. I've thought like what their rotations will end up being like, but like
they've got Mariah Jefferson as well, but she'll be the next one there,
probably the next one up, yeah. So like I'm interested in seeing what that like how that functions, and like how can they win games without absolutely burning out Sloot in the season. Like that is one thing I am like, if I was like place a worry, it might be within that, just because again, to Jamie, to your point, you're relying a lot on Sloot, and like look, she's proven time and time again to be more incapable of that. It truly is just like an age thing, and like just the wear and tear on your body and things of that nature. That's what I'm interested in. You know, like all these things will all different factors, you know. So like I really am interested in like in just like what that management is, and like, or if there is any, maybe like, if she's able to go the whole season, then we're talking about this in a completely different light of what Sloot has been able to bring. So
yeah. Anyway, so yeah, very much I agree with you. Looking forward to Chicago, but for my pick, I really enjoyed watching the Valkyries play their first game last week, and I thought it was very intriguing because a lot of these players we haven't really seen, you know, get a lot of WNBA time. Even like their star players, and like Monique Billings hasn't like fully made a WNBA roster in a while. And then you have like Kate Martin, you have, you know, Tiffany Hayes, who was semi-retired and then unretired. And then you have all these international players. So I was watching and I was like, I'm very intrigued by this. You have Letitia Amahir, who I don't know why she wasn't getting minutes in Atlanta, but now she's going to get minutes. And I feel like people
don't get me started.
Don't get me started. And I mean, it's time for this with LA over here. But like, I think like to see her, so in that game that I watched, she scored 20 points, led the team. And I've known, like, I've watched her play for Team Canada. Like, she's the kind of player, even coming off the bench, she comes in, immediately rebounds, scores in the post, defends, like that all around energy player that you want to be coming off the bench. So if she's able to do that in, you know, in Golden State, and you're surrounded by, you know, Tiffany Hayes, who we know is a great player, Monique Billings, you have Kate Martin coming up, and then you have these international players like Carla Late, which like I'm just shouting her out because we have the same last name. No relation that I know of. My mom was like, we have family in France, and I was like, maybe, who knows? But so she was one that I was really intrigued to see too, and was getting a lot of like opportunities in that game. And then so I think it's like this very intriguing, like I'm just so curious to see how the product comes out, because you have these players who haven't really had the chance. Like I think their identity this season anyway is just kind of like, let's put all these players together who we, you know, maybe are a bit older, haven't really gotten the chance, mix them in with like a few rookies. Like I'm not sure if they still have a lot of cuts to make, mind you, but you know, Caitlin Chen has a chance of making the roster.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, a lot. They have like 18 players still. Then you have like Kate Martin, who, you know, beloved and, you know, with more chance to play, will probably show a lot more in her bag as well. And so I'm just like intrigued to see what they, you know, I know we all are guessing that they're not going to be a playoff team. I'm not saying they're going to like jump up in the whatever, but I'm so curious on an individual player level for them, who really, you know, stands out. And then when we go into free agency next season, who is kind of these players that are really on our radar right now, but then end up being these like, big free agent role players next season who come into the conversation on these big, championship contender teams. So I mean, I really enjoyed watching. Also, their court,
It looks
beautiful,
good. It looks good.
beautiful court. So
They're
yeah,
really in a position to like just they have a bunch of people who are primed to have breakout season. And so it's
yeah,
not that everyone will, but
yeah.
they have a lot of people who just haven't had a ton of opportunity to get established, to play significant minutes, to maybe play as big of a role on their team. But no, I mean you're completely right. Like I said way back that I love the idea of Letitia Amihere on Golden State. And so I'm so thrilled that whatever kind of circuitous route it took, she got out there. I think that ending up with Julie Von Lowe is huge.
Hmm.
I think that you have a lot of players that have such ability and have shown it in really tough situations. Like we've talked about Monique Billings bouncing around different teams. Like that is so difficult to contribute when you aren't even there for an entire season. Temi Faye Benley, I mean, gosh, how can you not love her game? Like, and I mean, not to mention, like, talk about all around, talk about well-rounded, like, she's an actress, like, she's got
She's
it
doing
all.
everything.
Like, I love her. I digress. But no, I mean, there's so much potential where you don't know exactly where it's going to come from, but you know that you have a lot of potential sources for your contributions.
Yeah, and again, with them being an expansion team and free agency, the mess that next year is going to be. Obviously, I don't think this is going to be the team that is going to be like the team for years to come, but it is. I'm so curious. I do think that at least one of two of them will be in the most improved conversation. Like I think a most improved conversation will come from Golden State, whether that's
Especially
Billings or
considering the fact that a lot of the time that's just because people play more minutes.
yeah, literally.
I
Um,
do.
but I think Amiher's like a huge contender for that because I know what she's capable of. South Carolina fans know what she's capable of. Atlanta fans don't know what she's capable of because they didn't really get to see her. So I think yeah, it's going to be intriguing to see. And again, I just want to know why. Still, I just want to know why. Anyway, Jamie, let's head to you because I know your team is a little bit more of a contender in this situation.
Yeah, I think we'll have to see. There's still some question marks as far as like how everything fits together. Not really on the roster at the moment. It's I'm talking Seattle Storm. I
Mhm.
think that the big thing that has come about recently that has sort of shifted the ceiling for this team is that both Dominique Malonga and Gabby Williams announced that they are going to forego Eurobasket. So they will not miss like a full month in the midst of the WNBA season. And I mean that's got to be a really difficult decision. Both of them have talked about how important it is to wear the French jersey. They've obviously put a lot of time and effort into developing the program there, have seen significant success, but they talked about how, I think it's they both thought it was just important for them to be here, to be with their team in the US, to be competing. And I think that says a lot about what they are seeing as far as the capabilities of this team and this roster in Seattle. Like, you don't do that just because, we're going to be okay, but I feel like, yeah, I'll stick around. I'll help them out. I like my teammates. No, you do that because you think that you're a contender. And so to see that from a couple of their key players certainly makes me take notice. And so I'm really excited to see how they develop over the course of the season as a group. Like there's a good number of players that have played together before, which is so awesome. To be able to rely on, last year you had Skylar Diggins, you had Nneka Ogwumike, you had Ezzy Magbegor, you had
Good.
yeah, well,
Well,
yes, she's
eh,
not back. But you have these players that are returning that have
Okay,
played
okay,
together
okay.
before.
We were talking about who they had last year. I was like, "Ooh."
I know, but who they had
Yeah,
last year, they also have this year. They
yeah.
had Gabby Williams for part of the season. And then you add in, you bring Alicia Clark back, who has that veteran leadership, who has that experience. You're adding this, extremely, extremely high ceiling Dominique Malonga. young player. And then you also have, Liuru, who I highlighted last week about how I thought she just absolutely popped off. She's got the best vibes. If you haven't seen like her postseason or her post game press conference comments, I loved it. She has the biggest smile on her face. Like, love to see that. They're keeping Zaya Cook as of right now as well, and so she had some really good minutes in their preseason games. I just think they have a really well-balanced roster. Obviously, their cap situation is going to be a little bit tough, and so their roster is going to be hard with Katie Lou Samuelson being hurt, but still counting towards the cap space, so their depth is going to be a little bit of an issue until they have enough space to sign another player. But the people that they have I think have a really great chance at contributing significantly. So I'm very much waiting to see what we get early from Seattle, and then knowing that they'll be able to build on that over the course of the season, because they won't be out a couple of their star players for a significant portion of time, at least due to Eurobasket.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting. And honestly, like, for a team like France, who is probably a favorite to win Eurobasket, it's definitely a tough blow for them. But I mean, I don't know what they're putting in the water in France. They're good. Like, they got.
Yeah. I don't know what that roster is gonna look like exactly, but
They're good.
If it's anything like what we've seen, it's gonna be fun. I'll tell you. I mean, just generally speaking, like I've kind of been thinking about this last couple of days. Dominique Malonga literally could not have been in a better place. Like, literally could not have been. Whether you have, like, you look at the vets, whether you have, like, a NECA who has done everything in the league as a big, you have your forever, like, partner in this in Ezzy, like, presumably, like, they should be teamed up forever. You have your national team teammate in Gabby Williams, like, and, like, to me, if Dominique Malonga could just come and be solid, don't have to be a star, just be solid. Yeah. And then separately, if you could unlock Olympics Gabby Williams in the W, like like, to me, that's where, like, Seattle, like, I almost could equally, like, see the path of, like, a first round elimination, like in like a 4-5 series again, as I can a championship run. To me, because, like, the margins, like, it really just does come down to one. You can't, like, there's really not any room for any other, like, negative, like, whether it be injuries or anything like that. Like, you don't have a ton of room on this roster to work with or anything like that. Like, you really can't have any more bad luck, frankly, on this roster. After losing Jordan Horston, you lose Samuelson. Like, there's not a lot of room left. But if these two French players can come in and just, like, again, if you get Gabby up to like 15 points per game, which is like just like an incremental increase. I think she was at like 12 last time in the W, like, give or take. Again, it doesn't have to be much. But if Skylar and NECA, who were both incredibly underrated in my eyes last year, if they can just kind of do the same thing that they did last year, and then you add Dominique Malonga and you add Gabby Williams, like, full time, and that's not even getting into Ezzy Magbagor, I can see the vision. I really can. Like, I'm very excited to see what this kind of goes to. Again, I think it comes down to both Gabby and Dominique Malonga to, like, raise their ceiling, and the fact that they're both going to be here, not only pretty much from, I know there was like a little bit of a delay in getting to training camp, but, like, generally speaking, has been here and then is going to be here for the long haul, like, through Eurobasket. Like,
well,
it's major. It's massive.
It's massive because I think, like, that time, like, June-ish, going into the All-Star break, like, that is the time that, like, teams start to either, like, make or break. Like, you think about last year, that was when Minnesota started to, like, turn up the heat. Commissioner's Cup time, whatever, like, you start to, like, feel the competitive edge of the season, and you start to realize, oh, this is going by really fast. If you take away two of your core players during that time and they go play in Eurobasket in a tournament that's also very tiring, and you're traveling time zones, whatever, like, that's such a crucial time to be missing two core players. And so I definitely agree with their decision. It definitely was probably a very difficult decision, but, like, that is the time that teams need to be pressing on the gas. Like, no more time for, okay, it's the beginning of the season, everybody's getting settled. Like, no, you need to be settled. And that's when you kind of start to see that separation between teams that are like, okay, like, this is our first tier and this is our first round exit kind of tier. So yeah, it's a good decision. And, like, I'm so high on Gabby Williams, always have been. I was cheering for her in the Olympics, #NotSorryAmerica. But I just, like, and she's just so good, and I think she has that, like, fire of now she's just, like, in a situation where she's, thriving and that she loves her teammates and that they're all, like, finally getting past this, like, post-Sue Bird, Brianna Stewart era, and I do think that this is gonna be, like I'm high on them for the season, so, yeah,
I'm excited.
that's that.
I'm
Mic
excited.
drop. Um, yeah, so anyway, we've been yapping, but I mean, I guess this is the last time we're gonna be the 3 of us, which is so sad. But thank you
At
all
least
so much
as
for
your regularly scheduled
yeah,
programming.
Yeah.
you're literally gonna I'm recording tomorrow, like, you're gonna have to hear me yap again very
Yeah.
soon. But thank you so much for tuning into the press break all of these months. We've had such a blast. Just kind of building a fun little community of people. We're not going anywhere, don't worry. But make sure to subscribe to Her Hoop Stats on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast, because we are coming with more podcast energy. Like I said at the beginning, we're changing our format to be every day during the week during the NBA or WNBA season. So you'll be seeing the 3 of us along with some new faces coming into the podcast rotation, and we'll also be, coordinating a little bit more with our writing team over on Her Hoop Stats. So make sure to check out our newsletter. It comes into your inbox every single day. And for all of your information about who's making rosters, cap, et cetera, check out herhoopstats.com as well. Team cap sheets, I literally go and check them like 2 times a day. Like, they are bookmark. Put the bookmark on our page as well. So thank you so much for watching. And Tyler and Jamie, thanks for being my podcast partners for the past few months. We're definitely it's not the end, it's just a new beginning, but our fun little trio has been a joy. So thank you all so much for that. Make sure to follow the 3 of us online too. We love seeing your comments, and we love, interacting with people who listen to the podcast. So thank you so much. And until next time, we'll see you.